All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. I have my latest guest here in front of me, Sabrina. Say hello to the listeners.
Hi, how are you?
Sabrina, I'm delighted to have you on as a guest, and I'd love you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do, I suppose, in a kind of an elevator pitch.
Okay, elevator pitch. Okay,
Yeah,
I
that's it.
am a psychotherapist. I work in Dublin. I'm practicing probably 10 years now. I run a centre up in Drumcondra here with about nine therapists working for us and currently trying to hire more because of demand out there. We're in a bit of a crisis, but that's separate. So I'm also in parallel with that now. I am involved in an educational body, the Climbing Association of Ireland, which is a psychoanalytical learning for analysts and therapists in Dublin, Ireland, really, but it's through London. It's a much more deeper model. So I'd have links in there, and I would also, which I'm here to talk about today, is Lovestock. We are in the process now of organising a mental health and holistic fair festival for families to try and bring together some supports after a couple of years we've all had to endure
Mm.
in the world. So that's probably a little snapshot of what I do. But yeah,
Yeah, and
I'd
that's where
be
we, I suppose, Sabrina, connected. It's the likes of that Lovestock event that we'll be putting and tagging in the show notes after the likes of
yeah.
this podcast, telling people, I suppose, when it's on. It's on the weekend of the 24th and the 25th of September. And if you want to, I suppose, expand on what that whole event is about, who will be there, and who is it aimed towards, so I suppose we can pull that out.
Okay. Well, I suppose the inspiration, I might as well talk about the inspiration. I'm hearing a lot of people now think we're hippie, vibey kind of dudes. And it does kind of ring bells with Woodstock. But I suppose I got inspired after the first lockdown. I was really thinking long and hard, looking at the levels of despair and isolation out there. And what people were sent home into, which, 2 weeks turned into a very long time. And I could see, because I kept the practice open, we were essential, mental health, but I could see people were quickly deteriorating really badly in isolation. And of course, this lack of contact with family or life, really, you could see it was nearly like their minds were shrinking, and people were becoming more and more recluse and regressed. So I really thought long and hard about what does this mean, or how can we, what's going to happen after this? But it just brought me back to war times and despair and times in society when things have become pretty despairing. And I thought, what came out of most despair? It's usually music and creativity. It's usually where people bounce, which was Woodstock, sorry. So I thought, well, what are people lacking right now? What's going to be key to getting people moved on in this when it does open up, which is love, love and connection, because it was all about disconnect. Everything was disconnecting
Mm.
people. You can't see your granny, you can't see your friend, you can't see. So people were getting more and more isolated, and that isolation, to be fair, is the number one health risk in people above cigarettes. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's actually the number one factor in sickness. Yeah, is isolation.
Amazing. That's an amazing fact. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, I was really concerned, and I suppose I would have studied because I work psychosomatically, which, if I can explain that in plain English, I would work with the symptom in the body, where people kind of swallow their feelings or stress and how it plays out in the body, and symptoms would be a key factor in that now. So I would have great links. It's probably worth saying I've worked in a GP surgery for about 25 years before I got into this industry. So I would have a knowledge of both areas,
You've
mind and
plenty
body. So
experience behind yourself, all right. And what kind of, I
just a little
suppose,
bit.
yeah, just a little bit. What kind of things could people expect if they were to come to the likes of the Lovestock event on the weekend of the 24th?
Well, what we have, I suppose it's mental health healing. Now we're not obviously going to be doing mental health consultations, but we'll have people on site, just for advisory or if people need to talk, they won't, obviously, with the atmosphere available on the day. But we have lots of you'll get a taste of a lot of therapies, healings. We've got reflexology, we've got massage, we've got structural realignment, we've got Reikis, we've got energy healing, we've a range of type of therapies that people can come in and have a taste of. There's going to be people at stalls too giving guidance and advice, including yourself,
Yeah,
on
I suppose there's
healthy
the there's the winner
healthy
as
living.
yeah,
Yeah.
healthy living, healthy lifestyle, and suppose the whole idea of the event Sabrina, might be a fact of building community, like-minded people.
It's really about getting the communities back on board. There's been such divisive language used in the previous. I mean, that's probably the most upsetting thing for me is watching how they're trying to divide people and, this kind of yes, no. So, I mean, mental health, I think, is what everybody has struggled with in the last 2 years, 3 years nearly now. But, I think mental health is probably the one thing we can all relate to right now. And I'm absolutely bowled over in Ireland that we can finally talk about this in a healthy way. It was such a stigma in our past. If you were mad, you were considered mad or for the white coats. It was that type of thinking. So I think now we have ground to actually say it's okay to struggle, and open up about that. It's probably worth mentioning too. We have a men's space. We have something specifically for the men because we know in Ireland men have a real struggle. I suppose most of the suicide rates would be leaning towards men and their struggles, and been able to talk or even have language for talking. So I know it's a huge factor in the males in Ireland. So we have all sorts of hopefully appeal to all appetites now. But we have children. We've even got children's meditation going to be there. The little peaceful warriors, they're going to be there now just teaching children how to calm and ground because I mean they've been through the wars in this too, the school systems and
Yeah, it's a family
stress at
event, I suppose,
home.
for everyone and anyone
Completely.
who would
Yeah.
want to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
for all
But
ages, and that's the whole idea of it.
yeah.
And
Oh, we do. We've got everything. I mean, we've tried to, obviously there's a lot on board, but we've fire breathers, we've fire walking, we've fear workshops. I mean, we want fun. We want to kind of bring people back with fun under the umbrella of healing and mental health and community. I mean, we've really been split and broken all over the place now. So the aim is to try and just encourage that type of thinking back into society while we move forward in this uncertainty, which I know is still quite alive out there.
and I suppose you were previously doing a small bit of this during the last couple period of years at general public parks, and how did that go for you?
That was interesting. I think when what I noticed, I mean, it really shocked me after the first lockdown when people started to come back out. I mean, the presentations into mental health was scary. I mean, I've seen people out of their own minds. I've seen people not able to talk. The capacity for conversation was gone because they were just so alone or sitting in front of screens or so you could see there was a real struggle. So what we decided to do, there's lads, musicians, I'll be very into music now, but I mean my passion alongside mental health. So we decided, I got a few people together and we said, look, why don't we go out to the parks? There was no access to services. There was no access to anything really. It was just everything was shut down. So we decided to start in Cork and we did a brilliant event there in Fermoy back in July of 20. Hold on now, let me get this right. It was 21, I think we started there after the second lockdown. So we went out. What we did then was contact all the local therapists and ask them to be on site and just be available for the community that they could come and talk in a safe, open space while we provided music and fun for families. So we had great results. So we were in Cork, we were in Kerry, we were in Portlaoise. We were just jotting around the place every 2 weekends. Now it was great fun as well as just giving the community access to services or knowing where people were, therapists were, or healers, all that kind of stuff. So it was brilliant. But we were met with a lot of, we were met by, I don't even want to use the language, but we were met by the Gardaí, turned up on quite a few occasions, wondering what we were up to. And once they heard, I mean, there was very little they could do. We were just there to try and support mental health. But yeah, we were getting pushed into certain areas, are you anti this and you anti that? No, we're not. It was all this type of divisive language again. But we continued and it really picked up a pace, and I could see people naturally gravitating towards therapists. And it was men too, which really interested me. It was brilliant to see them coming out now and speaking
Some
up,
people, I suppose you're right, would have that stigma, whether you're a young male or an older male, of talking to somebody, and that's really important. Whatever age you are, there's so many people out there to help, but it's always try to get yourself connected with the right people, and that's what I suppose this event and any things that I would currently
Yeah,
do, meeting people, it's such a big thing. We live in a world
yeah.
right now where I know we're doing this through Zoom. That's I suppose connecting us that way. But there's too much of that. There's too much of social media. There's not enough face to face. There's not enough connection, whether it's hand to hand, heart to heart, hug, kiss on the cheek, whatever it is. We don't get enough of it.
No, we don't. Human contact. I mean, we need human touch. It's part. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a baby's spine wouldn't form unless they were touched. Like touch is as important as food. to the human, you know, the holding hand and soothing. And I mean, there is something about that. They've studied the blood pressure goes down. There's definitely comfort in touching each other and holding each other, you know, but we've got so frightened. People have got so frightened. I still see it out there. You know, you're going down the supermarket and people are jumping, and it's like they're afraid of humans now, which is brutal. It's just caused so many problems, you know. So yeah, touch. But again, you're right. We're here sitting on a screen, talking to each other, you know, looking at each other's heads. You're not even getting the body language, you know. You know.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's
And
what I suppose we're trying to do a little bit more of, inform people through the likes of the platforms that they're currently on, to meet people face to
yeah.
face, to get that connection, to improve that, like the production of the serotonin, the dopamine, when you do hug,
Mm,
when you do shake hands, when you do connect with somebody on I
yeah.
suppose a similar wavelength, talking about topics that they're interested in, and mental health being a massive one for anybody who's going to come to this event.
Mental health, well, look, it's mental health themed now. I don't want people to think they're going into a big therapy room. It's not that. It's not going to be intense. It really is about having fun and reconnecting community. It's probably a big part of that I should mention is it's Irish grassroots we're doing. We're trying to get I mean, I don't know if you're aware of music. I mean, this is another bone of contention with me are young out there now. You know, there if you actually listen to the music that's out there, it's just all sex and aggression and oh, it's brutal stuff. I mean, where are all the love songs gone? Where are all the songs about connection and coming together? And, you know, I mean, our young people are out there, they're going around thinking they have to be porn stars. That's what's being promoted through media, you know. So this kind of messaging around sexuality or connection has gone to a very different place. So our aim now is to try and get the real artists back on stage. You know, I mean, they're not getting a look in the industry anymore. So we have some fantastic musicians from around Ireland coming to the stage, very, very talented people, you know, and they're singing about love and connection. Can you believe that?
Yeah, but you're so right about the likes of the pressure being put on, whether you're male or female, through social media to look a certain way, to be a certain weight, to look and have a certain shape about your body. And what we're trying to
We
do here,
are, yeah, we're developing an industry of narcissism, really. You know, and I can see it in the 18 to 25-year-olds coming through that door. They don't know how to make contact with each other. I was actually in a restaurant there. It really shocked me. A few weeks back, I was in a restaurant and I think there was a young date going on beside me, and they had two phones in front of them. And when one looked down, the other one looked up. When the other one looked up, the other one looked down. I mean, they didn't speak two words to each other. The whole time I sat in this restaurant and I was watching, going, oh my God, what have we done? What have we actually supported in our youth, you know, by this thing? It's all about disconnect, you know. They don't even know how to make eye contact with each other anymore. It's nearly like it's terrifying, you know.
yeah, it certainly is. And that really comes from what is being put out there. Everything is on the phone. It's your bank card. It's your way of connecting with everyone. Anyone in school has one. And if you're not in with a click, you suppose you're going to be left behind, and in fact, you're
Oh,
going to be
that's it.
bullied. And
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what's interesting, I can see, I mean, I seen a teenager with a book and what was it? Break Up with Your Phone. There was actually a book out there called Breaking Up with Your Phone. But just talking about that connection, and it's like it's a person. I just see people coming in the door here, and it's like they just can't let go of it. It's this means to connect, but it's in isolation. People are doing this,
but
you
what that
know.
actually happens is I would read a lot into, I suppose, the production of happy hormones in the body and how to produce them as naturally as they possibly can, being someone massively into health. See, what actually happens is when we put out images, whether you're putting it out, let's say myself, for example, I'm looking for gratification, I'm looking for more likes, I'm looking for more followers. And from that, I get a dopamine hit, or the individual gets a dopamine hit, which is unnatural to, I suppose, the way the body works. We used to get that from somebody walking down the street, and or just getting told from a friend or a family member or a partner saying, geez, you look good today. But now it's just the total
Yeah,
opposite. You don't have that.
yeah.
You have a double tap or you have a swipe.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think you're right about validation. And it is. I mean, to be realistic, we're clannish by nature. I really looked at this whole pull into Facebook. We unconsciously desire to belong to something bigger than us. You know, it's our clannish nature as humans. We've family, we've individual family, and then the kind of greater society. So you are right, but people are getting hooked on this way of being validated.
Mm.
you know, like that. You say you're getting hits from how many hits you're getting, you know, but then you're probably walking down the street and I mean, I don't know how comfortable you are with relationships, but you know, are you okay to go out there now into a crowd of people? Would you be as equally confident? Do you know?
Yeah, and that would be down to the individual. And what we were touching on, I suppose, before we came onto this, is about the connection about how to produce maybe a happier individual through the likes of foods. And that's one of the topics that I'll be talking about on the
Yeah.
25th, on the Sunday evening. And like, we must remember those kind of facts that 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut, how and what feeds your gut, more fruit and veg. And you most certainly have tried and sampled some of the produce that I'm growing here in the
I
likes of
have.
Kildare.
Yeah, very, very delicious, by the way. If anyone's interested in what you're growing,
There
your
you go. There's
melon,
the
I can say, tasted like a mango. It was really lovely now. Really, you're doing great work there. But you're right. But I mean, happy hormones, I suppose the best connections we can get, if you look at it, it's all relationship based. If you're in an intimate, connected relationship, you know, if people are connected in that way, all that stuff comes from there. I'm not saying food and all these other things can't contribute to that, but you're really, people know how to connect well and properly. That's where your good feelings come from, you know.
And we were also discussing the fact that I suppose when times are stressful, people are going towards other natural things organically, such as the
I
likes
know,
of
yeah, I noticed that. That's what we were talking about before here. I noticed that in the first lockdown, as I said, I would have been up and down. But as soon as the lockdown finished and people were able to get out there, the beaches were full. I mean, the vitamin C, have you heard of this one? The vitamin C.
vitamin
People just
C.
have, but again, it's the salts. You know, if you look at trauma, in trauma, Epsom salts and all those magnesiums are brilliant for giving the body what it needs. You know, when it's traumatized, it will just replenish the nutrients and minerals that's taken in trauma. So it was like organically people were just going for that without realizing what they were doing. I thought it was the most fascinating thing, you know. The parks were full, people were just out in nature, which is where we get real connection, by the way. It's not in these rooms and computers, you know. It's nature is what connects people up and gives people grounding, you know. But I could see such a gravitation for that. It was, I mean, they're doing it here. There's the Dublin Dippers. They're out every morning before they even go to work and they're having swims in the sea, you know. But again, it's the salts and it's that kind of connection. But interestingly, which one of my trainings now really kind of brought me home to, I don't know if you're aware, but when we are in water, we are unconsciously going back to our womb, which is the safest place we've been in, you know, in the world. It's when we're in there getting everything, you know, provided to us, and it's water, and that's why baths and water is so pleasurable. It really unconsciously draws us back into that place of safety.
My God, it's amazing. I haven't ever heard that concept before, and I've been in the sea a lot
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah. It's an unconscious. We obviously don't remember. We've no memory in womb, but we do have emotional memory, you know.
That's brilliant. And really and truly, there is a higher percentage of people actually leaning back towards the likes of sea swims and things like that. Now that I suppose it has been an increase since the likes of these lockdowns, people going towards natural ways of improving their health with magnesium in the likes of the salts.
It's been forced. It's been forced in a brilliant way. Not saying what happened has been brilliant. I think there's been so much suffering, you know, but when you put people against the wall, the creativity that comes from that is mind blowing. That was the Lovestock thing. Let's see what creates out of all this despair, you know, and what comes on board. I mean, there's such creativity can come once you're channeling it in the right way. Unfortunately, not a lot of people, a margin of people, I won't say not a lot, but a margin of people now would end up in very, very difficult places, you know. But there was such a gravitation to nature. It was just mind blowing. It was very exciting for me to see, you know,
With
and
the likes
develop,
of
and it's still going.
I suppose some of your clients, Sabrina, what I suppose is one of the main things that they actually are suffering with, without going into too much detail, just in general.
Exhaustion. I'm seeing a lot of exhaustion and trauma. I mean, we still haven't, I still, even my own mind, I'm like last year. It's like we lost a year. It's like we got paralyzed in some way, you know, and I can see that with everybody. It's only, and some people are starting to say, what happened? What did I go through? I'm only starting to realize what I've gone through because the ground is starting to kind of land a little bit, but there's such a trauma that we have yet to work out in society and a loss, the biggest loss of safety, of certainty, of life as we knew it. I mean, it's never going to go back there. We're not going to recover. And I think all that has yet to be processed in people, you know, while we're still meeting uncertainty. You know, we don't know if we'll have lights on this bloody winter or enough food on the table. I mean, you know, we're still getting met with these bangs. And of course, I can hear it today now that people are getting letters in the door saying 300 to 400% increase in gas. Like, what are we dealing with here now? Cold, hungry children going to bed at night. I mean, what next? You know, I mean, how far do you think the human mind can be pushed before it breaks? And to me, it's kind of bordering on that now type of crisis. I actually think, and I don't get too despairing, but I do think we are hitting a mental health crisis unlike any we've ever seen before, particularly with what's potentially going to play out this winter, you know.
And what do you do then, I suppose, with people who are suffering or on the periphery edges of being pushed to their limits? What do you do with clients, or how do you help in the grieving, I suppose, process?
You just have to help. You just provide the space for them to go there, really, and let them fall apart or let them scream and shout or whatever's going on, you know, just to let them know they're safe to go and explore these feelings they're in, you know. There's very little else you can do when you give them that space, you know. A lot of them are finding natural ways. I do think people need more support than just a therapy. I think society now really needs to start coming together, neighbours. Probably a bit of excitement to have. And I know this might sound really mental, but I'm actually looking forward to a bit of poverty coming back in because we will create communities. Our communities will come together. We'll start feeding our neighbours and we'll start looking after each other again. The Ireland I grew up in, you know, I'm not sure you remember that, Colman, but there would have been a time now, you know, where you cut your slice of bread and gave it to your neighbour if you were hungry, you know, and that I'm excited for that part of society kind of coming back together. I think we've got very individualistic. I think when the American model came in, you know, I heard the latest I heard was a neighbor, or there was a court case, I think, thrown out in Cork because the neighbor splashed water on the other neighbor's head, watering his plants. You know, this is where it's gone, you know, this kind of individualism. That is not Ireland. Jesus, we'd leave keys in front doors and walk in and out and take milk out of the fridge. Now, not saying that's right either, but that's the Ireland we grew up in. You know, we were kind, we were friendly, we were there for each other, no matter what. That's kind of gone missing, I think, in recent years, you know. So if an element of that comes back on board, it can only be a good thing, you know.
Yeah, and what we are doing as, I suppose, ourselves being involved in the likes of this event, it's building community. And the community is probably the word of the podcast that's most certainly going to come out here today. And
Yeah,
you, I suppose, are in a position right now to start growing a little bit of your own. And I think that's what we're
yeah,
going back to, the old ways of, I suppose,
yeah,
living. We're
yeah,
producing something for ourselves, whether
yeah,
it's eggs from chickens, or
yeah.
from the likes of your foods, whether potatoes, it's carrots, it's onions, and you grow one type of variety of fruit or veg, and your neighbor grows the next. You do a
Yes,
bit of a bartering system, because that, to
yeah,
me, is a real sense of living. And there's no better, I suppose, mood improvers than the likes of something that's grown in the soil. You're outside, you're grounding, sunlight, vitamin D, all these things. And it's often said and asked to me, Coleman, what are you currently taking? I'm literally doing the most simplest things that people are not doing every day. You're not eating enough real foods. You're not getting
yeah.
outside. You're not grounding enough.
I
And
seen this. I actually seen this when I worked for the GP. I seen what happened with, I noticed when the fast food industry and the microwave and the processed and the, you know, everything, this kind of quick living, everything was just so quick, you know, quick food, quick food, quick, crazy. And all of a sudden, all these symptoms started to come in. You know, we have vitamin B12 deficiencies, and vitamin B12 is about the lining of the womb, being able to absorb, or stomach, being able to absorb vitamin B, but the stomachs were being ripped out with all these chemicals and all this crap gone into food. You could see it. All these babies start being born lactose intolerant. Women were becoming infertile. I was like, what is going on here? What is this? You know, but it was in around the time the food started to be quicker and faster and processed. And Jesus, we'd all sorts of everything American popping up all over the place, you know, feeding us absolute junk. And of course, it's easy living, you know, the parents trying to do two jobs to pay a mortgage, you know, McDonald's on the way home, easier, you know, you can see how life has got more demanding based on pricing. And Jesus, I mean, I remember the day the man went out to work and the wife could stay at home and feed the children on his wage and pay a mortgage. No more. So, I mean, the demand's been put on families just to survive, I think, is impacting how they eat and live, you know. And of course, you're probably one of the lucky ones now to have that beautiful job you do, Colman. Climbing greenhouses and picking fruit. I mean, it's amazing, you know. It's really, it's great. I mean,
Uh,
it's fantastic.
well,
Yeah.
it's probably one of those quotes that the grass is always greener on the other side, because if you had to realize maybe the work sometimes, lads, that goes into that, but do you know what I mean? Hard work
Yeah,
yields lovely
yeah.
rewards out the other side of it. That's the other
Which
key
I've
point.
tasted.
Yeah.
Yes, which I've tasted, by the way. Very, very delicious. But no, I think you're right. I think that, and again, are we going to have more time for this now when things start to hit the wall? You know, we will have more time for each other and food and taking care of ourselves. Oh, that's got lost.
And cooking,
It does.
cooking foods, like we were just touching on I suppose, that point that going into, whether it's a chipper or it's a fast food establishment, we've lost connection, and that actually brings people together. Cooking foods, family,
Yeah.
that quote comes to mind, the family that eats together, stays together. And how often do we actually sit down with our family members and have a chat about how the day went? And that's going to most certainly, and does help mental health, having these conversations, whether
You
it's
know
minimal.
why?
Yeah.
Would you
Why?
like more insights? I'll give you more insights about
Do.
that one, will I?
Do.
Food and bonding. You're dead right, because the Europeans do it. I have a bit of an Italian background now, but they go out at night, the Spanish to Italians, they go out at night and social. Their bonding is with their families at the table and they're eating food. But if I want to go into analytical thinking, it's a lot to do with the breastfeeding, food and the bonding at the same time, the connection to that, you know, how we connect with bonding. It's you're dead right. Eating at the table. A lot of people are sitting, you know, I see these, oh, I was up in my room with my dinner and my parents are downstairs. You know, just eating and watching that. You're dead right. It's about connecting. It's about taking care of each other and checking in with each other and just being around a table together, you know. But the food is very symbolic and how we bond.
Yeah. And even cooking it. Do you know what I mean? Prepping it. That's all, I suppose, my area of expertise. You're getting your body and it's ready to produce the likes of saliva, which is the starting of the digestion process. Whether you're going straight into a quick high protein bar shake or something, where everybody is
Yeah.
literally being shoved down you, causing bloating, causing irritation, causing bowel issues later on.
Yeah.
We've gone so far away from health. It's unbelievable, but we've been
I
driven there, I
know.
suppose, through mass media.
Yeah, mass media, with mass media, huge demands on the family, huge. What I see now, and I can see it since 2008, and I think it does contribute to a lot of men's mental health and struggles, is the change in roles in families. It's nearly like the women have become the kind of stronger one, and the men are, I feel they're lost. They don't know what to do. They're walking out, how do I please her? How do I protect my family? You know, I feel the potency has kind of shifted around, and I believe media is instrumental in that one now. You know, this whole feminist movement, that to me is bordering on aggression, to be fair. You know, women are gentle by nature, men are aggressive by nature. You know, that's just the nature of man and woman. But it's kind of shifting. You know, you hear a lot of men at home now. There's nothing wrong with it. And I know men can be great with their families, but it's just the dynamics are gone a bit awry. And I could see that since 2008 when the men lost their jobs in the crash back then, you know, and I think they've been struggling since to
Is that
recover
something?
their sense, you know.
Is that something that inevitably a lot of your current clients are suffering with as well? I suppose being lost at the home.
They're lost in their roles in society. I just see men coming in, they're like, I just don't know what women want anymore. I don't know how to approach them. They seem to want to operate on their own. I mean, we've got these sperm clinics now coming up where women don't even have to have a man. They can just go and get impregnated and have their children. You know, there's so many kind of women doing their jobs, becoming professional, and then just leaning in that way, you know, to have their babies. I mean, where's that going to end up? You know, how do you tell a child saying, "Where's my daddy?" You know, the other side of their identity. What do you do in that instance? I mean, we've an evolution here to take place that I'm a little bit scared of in that respect. You know, it's scary where it's gone in that way. You know.
Hmm. And again, it's suppose we're losing connection with families, and just I suppose splitting them up or only having one side of it
Mhm.
there is something that we've just touched on in that. And this whole event which this podcast is based around is going to get more people to, I suppose, build a community, be and surround themselves with people who are interested in health from the moment they get up to, I suppose, the moment they go to
Health,
bed.
yeah. I mean, that is what it's about. Health and well-being, and mental health is instrumental in that. I don't think we understand enough around our mental health, the impact that has. I mean, I can hear you talking about bowels and digestion problems. I would work with that, I suppose, emotionally. It's a lot to do with processing and digesting emotion. There's a huge link to all of that now in the books. There's actually a really good book if you're interested in it now, just to tie in or maybe think about your own model and what you're doing. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about unresolved trauma and childhood, and how it plays out in the body, all these symptoms. We would have a massive amount of that in this country based on the unhealed wounds of our past. But it's a fantastic book for maybe giving you insight into what happens in the body when you're not expressing or experiencing your emotions. And it does impact diet and how we take care of ourselves. But what I think is great is, all like yourself, all these people coming to life now and pushing this stuff out there, particularly men. I think it's fantastic. Like what you're doing is it's just a hook for other men to come along and start. You're kind of giving them a great example.
Yeah, and that just don't, I suppose, don't try and blow me up completely. I would have, I suppose, mentors and coaches that have helped me along the way, and
Yeah, but
it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people. That, I suppose, this is something that I've been passed down to me. If you're surrounding yourself with five people who are heavy drinkers or into taking drugs or smoking on a regular basis and eating poor or making poor food choices, you will be the sixth. You hang around with five people who are healthy, who are getting outside, who are doing their best, that have a family, that have a community of people, you will be inevitably the next individual in that group. And that comes down
yeah.
to, I suppose, surround yourself with people who you would like to emulate.
Yeah, no, that's true. But we have to not forget our Irish culture. Traditionally, the drink is our painkiller. We've had, and to be fair, I mean, Jesus, we've such a depression in this country that's, yeah, I say we've a depression, but then you look at the creativity that's come from that. Look at the literature, the art, the music. I mean, it's all coming from that. Sitting at home in these dark nights and dark winters, that's where all that stuff came from. So I can see the benefits of it too. Not saying it's healthy, I get what you mean, but traditionally we have coped through alcohol. It's been our painkiller. And I think that culture, I wouldn't say it's dying off. It's still very much alive, but it's great to hear young men coming up now having conversations like you, and let's choose a different way. I can see it in the youth, and they're much more comfortable talking about mental health. It's nearly okay to go to therapy now. But the older generations, those old men and those are farmers and all those other people who take pride. I don't think the pub is just, particularly in rural areas, I don't think it's just about drinking, it's about community. So the pubs have been instrumental in our communities, throughout the years. And of course, they all went, in lockdown, and we had a lot of despair play out in particularly the isolated farmers and people that just went and give out at the end of the bar for half an hour. They were getting something from that despite the drinking. I'm not condoning where you're going with this, but it was instrumental in community.
Mm. And I suppose that is the best way. Maybe we can just wrap up by telling people that date again. We'll be tagging it here in the show notes. Uh,
Yes, and it isn't. We won't be selling alcohol at this event. Just,
I'm
just,
glad we're
just to
clearing that
put
up.
that out there. No, I mean we're going to be operating. I think as we open at 11 o'clock, and we will have our headliner, Siobhan O'Brien. She'll be on then till about 8:30. So there is campsites, there is places people can go if they want to indulge in that way. But no, it's all about just trying to give people a new way forward, or just give them access to thinking to develop a new way forward. But again, it's about community. It has to be about bringing us back together to get sitting at the tables and talking about what we're going to do next as a community. I really think it's instrumental in the next stage of poverty and maybe lack of heat. We're going to be facing a difficult winter together. So tools and resources, I think, are key, and we hope to provide a lot of that. And we will be continuing now. We're going to be doing a winter gig too. We're going to do some sort of a winter Christmas festival themed event.
Good. All things I suppose look forward to. So the date for the listeners and the viewers again on YouTube is most certainly the 24th and the 25th of September. And did we mention the likes of the location?
It's in Dúnashi. It's in Dúnashi. It's an amenity and heritage park. It's actually the most beautiful. It's the most beautiful park, but it's actually a tour of Ireland in the ancient days. It's brilliant. It really, and it just, I mean, what's fascinating about it is we actually have a lot of stuff here without electricity already in place. I mean, we have a lot of tools on this land to get through things, and there's a whole museum of that on site, you know, as well as what we're going to be putting together. So, I mean, it's really bringing Ireland forward in its most natural crafts and tools and arts and music. And so that was the aim, but we got the most beautiful site doing the shade, the land of the fairies. So it's in around the Midlands there. Beautiful site.
There we go. I'm majorly looking forward to it, most certainly myself.
Yeah,
And I'll be there on the Sunday evening, times to be just 100% confirmed. But other than that,
yeah.
that is the 25th, the 24th, and the 25th of September. I'll be
But
there.
we'll have you in a ring fort. We're planning on bringing you to a ring fort. How about that?
Bring forth sounds good.
And we'll have you lit up like this with your candles and your vibe. So yeah, it'd be great. Now I'm really looking forward to hearing this. I actually want to hear your talk too now, because I find what you do very interesting.
Very good. I suppose Sabrina, thanks so much for coming on and being a
Yeah.
guest on the likes of the podcast. I
Yeah.
suppose where is the best place for the likes of the listeners
Well,
to
you get
reach out?
the website, lovestock.ie. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Telegram. But the information, we've got Shanna Keys, we've all sorts. We've lots going on for children now. We've sack races and tugs of war. We've got great things going on for the kids now. It's really family orientated now. But individuals will get a lot from it too, depending on your appetite. We've tried to accommodate everything. It's all up online if you want to have a look.
Yeah, brilliant. Again, I'll put it all in the show notes if anyone wants to go. Or
Yeah.
listeners, if you're looking for the link for where you can get a ticket, I'm sure the tickets will be available on the day anyway. I'll send over those details through private
Yeah.
messages to individuals.
Brilliant. Lovestock.ie. You'll get it on the website. It's all there.
All right, Sabrina, thanks so much. And I always end these
Thank
podcasts.
you.
Welcome
Thanks
by
for
saying
having me.
you're super welcome. Stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic.